Beowulf. They went to sleep, and one paid dearly for his night's ease, as had happened to them often, ever since Grendel occupied the Gold Hall, committing evil until the end came, death after his crimes. Then it became clear, obvious to everyone once the fight was over, that an avenger lurked and was still alive, grimly biding time. Grendel's mother, monstrous Hellbride, brooded over her wrongs. She had been forced down into fearful waters, the cold depths after Cain had killed his father's son, felled his own brother with a sword, branded an outlaw, marked by having murdered. He moved into the wilds, shunned company and joy, and from Cain there sprang misbegotten spirits, among them Grendel, the banished and accursed, due to come to grips with that watcher in Hygelac waiting to do battle. The monster wrenched and wrestled with him, but Beowulf was mindful of his mighty strength, the wondrous gifts God had showered on him. He relied for help on the Lord of all, on his care and favor. So he overcame the foe, brought down the hell-brute, broken and bowed, outcast from all sweetness, the enemy of mankind, made for his death-den. But now his mother had sallied forth on a savage journey, grief-racked and ravenous, desperate for revenge. She came to Hygelac. There, inside the hall, Danes lay asleep, earls who would soon endure a great reversal. Once Grendel's mother attacked and entered. Her onslaught was less only by as much as an Amazon warrior's strength is less than an armed man's, when the hefted sword, its hammered edge and gleaming blade, slathered in blood, raises the sturdy boar ridge off a helmet. Then in the hall, hard-honed swords were grabbed from the bench, many a broad shield lifted and braced. There was little thought of helmets or woven mail when they woke in terror. The hell dam was in panic, desperate to get out, in mortal terror the moment she was found. She had pounced and taken one of the retainers in a tight hold, then headed for the fen. To Hrothgar, this man was the most beloved of the friends he trusted between the two seas. She had done away with a great warrior, ambushed him at rest. Beowulf was elsewhere. Earlier, after the award of the treasure, the Geat had been given another lodging. There was an uproar in Hygelac. She had snatched their trophy, Grendel's bloody hand. It was a fresh blow to the afflicted bond. The bargain was hard, both parties having to pay with the lives of friends. And the old lord, the gray-haired warrior, was heartsore and weary when he heard the news. His highest-placed adviser, his dearest companion, was dead and gone. Beowulf was quickly brought to the chamber. The winner of fights, the arch-warrior, came first footing in with his fellow troops to where the king in his wisdom waited, still wondering whether Almighty God would ever turn the tide of his misfortunes. So Beowulf entered, with his band in attendance, and the wooden floorboards banged and rang as he advanced, hurrying to address the prince of the Ingwins, asking if he'd rested since the urgent summons had come as a surprise. Then Hrothgar, the shielding's helmet, spoke. Rest? What is rest? Sorrow has returned. Alas for the Danes, Aesir is dead. He was Menlaf's elder brother, and a soulmate to me, a true warrior, my right-hand man when the ranks clashed, and our boar crest had to take a battering in the line of action. Aesir was everything the world admires in a wise man and friend. Then this roaming killer came in a fury and slaughtered him in Hygelac. Where she is hiding, glutting on the corpse and glorying in her escape, I cannot tell. She has taken up the feud because of last night when you killed Grendel, wrestled and racked him in ruinous combat, since for too long he had terrorized us with his depredations. He died in battle, paid with his life, and now this powerful other one arrives, this force for evil, driven to avenge her kinsman's death, or so it seems to thanes in their grief. In the anguish every thane endures at the loss of a ring-giver, now that the hand that bestowed so richly has been stilled in death. I have heard it said by my people in Hall, counselors who live in the upland country, that they have seen two such creatures prowling the moors, huge marauders from some other world. One of these things, as far as anyone can ever discern, looks like a woman. The other, warped in the shape of a man, moves beyond the pale, bigger than any man, an unnatural birth called Grendel by country people in former days. They are fatherless creatures, and their whole ancestry is hidden in a past of demons and ghosts. They dwell apart among the wolves on the hills, on wind-swept crags and treacherous caches, where cold streams pour down the mountain and disappear under mist and moorland. A few miles from here, a frost-stiffened wood waits and keeps watch. Above a mere, the overhanging bank is a maze of tree roots mirrored in its surface. At night there, something uncanny happens. The water burns, and the mere bottom has never been sounded by the sons of men. On its bank the heather stepper halts. The hart, in flight from pursuing hounds, will turn to face them with firm-set horns and die in the wood rather than dive beneath the surface. That is no good place. When wind blows up and stormy weather makes clouds scud and the skies weep, out of its depths a dirty surge is pitched towards the heavens. Now help depends again on you and you alone. The gap of danger where the demon waits is still unknown to you. Seek it if you dare. I will compensate you for settling the feud as I did last time with lavish wealth, coffers of coiled gold if you come back. Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow, spoke. Wise sir, do not grieve. It is always better to avenge dear ones than to indulge in mourning. For every one of us living in this world means waiting for our end. Let whoever can win glory before death. When a warrior is gone, that will be his best and only bulwark. So arise, my lord, and let us immediately set forth on the trail of this troll dam. I guarantee you she will not get away, not to dens underground, nor upland groves, nor the ocean floor. She'll have nowhere to flee. Endure your troubles today. Bear up and be a man I expect you to be. With that, the old lord sprang to his feet and praised God for Beowulf's pledge. Then a bit and halter were brought for his horse. With a plaited mane, the wise king mounted the royal saddle and rode out in style with a force of shield-bearers. The forest paths were marked all over with the monster's tracks, her trail on the ground wherever she had gone across the dark moors, dragging away the body of that Thane, Hrothgar's best counselor and overseer of the country. So the noble prince proceeded, undismayed, up fells and screes, along narrow footpaths, and ways where they were forced into single file, ledges on cliffs above layers of water monsters. He went in front with a few men, good judges of the lie of the land, and suddenly discovered the dismal wood. Mountain trees growing out at an angle, above gray stones, the bloodshot water surged underneath. It was a sore blow to all of the Danes, friends of the Shieldings, a hurt to each and every one of that noble company when they came upon Ashir's head at the foot of the cliff. Everybody gazed as the hot gore kept wallowing up and an urgent war horn repeated its notes. The whole party sat down to watch. The water was infested with all kinds of reptiles. They were writhing sea dragons and monsters slouching on slopes by the cliff. Serpents and wild things, such as those that often surface at dawn to roam the sail road and doom the voyage. Down they plunged, ashing in anger at the loud call of the battle bugle. An arrow from the bow of the Geat chief got one of them as he surged to the surface. The seasoned shaft stuck deep in its flank, and his freedom in the water got less and less. It was his last swim. He was swiftly overwhelmed in the shallows, prodded and barbed by boar spears, cornered, beaten, pulled up on the bank. A strange lake birth, a loathsome catch. Men gazed at it in awe. Beowulf got ready, donned his war gear, indifferent to death. His mighty, hand-forged, fine-webbed mail would soon meet with the menace underwater. It would keep the bone cage of his body safe. No enemy's clasp could crush him in it. No vicious armlock choke out his life. To guard his head he had a glittering helmet that was due to be muddied on the mere bottom and blurred in the upswirl. It was of beaten gold, princely headgear hooped and hasped by a weaponsmith who had worked wonders in days gone by and adorned it with boar shapes. Since then it had resisted every sword, and another item, lent by Unferth, at that moment of need was of no small importance. The Brehon handed him a hilted weapon, a rare and ancient sword named Hrunting. The iron blade with its ill-boding patterns had been tempered in blood. It had never failed the hand of anyone who hefted it in battle, anyone who had fought and faced the worst and gap of danger. This was not the first time it had been called to perform heroic feats. When he lent that blade to the better swordsman, Unferth, the strong-built son of Hygelac, could hardly have remembered the ranting speech he had made in his cups. He was not man enough to face the turmoil of a fight under water and the risk to his life. So there he lost fame and repute. It was different for the other, rigged out in his gear, ready to do battle. Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow, spoke. Wisest of kings, now that I have come to the point of action, I ask you to recall what we said earlier, that you, son of Halfdane and gold friend to retainers, that you, if I should fall and suffer death while serving your cause, would act like a father to me afterwards. If this combat kills me, take care of my young company, my comrades in arms, and be sure also, my beloved Hrothgar, to send Hygelac the treasures I received. Let the Lord of the Geats gaze on that gold. Let Hrethel's son take note of it and see that I found a ring-giver of rare magnificence and enjoyed the good of his generosity. And Unferth is to have what I inherited. To that far-famed man I bequeath my own sharp-honed, wave-sheened wonder-blade. With Hrunting, I shall gain glory or die. After these words, the prince of the Weathergeats was impatient to be away and plunged suddenly, without more ado. He dived into the heaving depths of the lake. It was the best part of a day before he could see the solid bottom. Quickly the one who haunted those waters, who had scavenged and gone her gluttonous rounds for 100 seasons, sensed a human, observing her outlandish lair from above. So she lunged and clutched and managed to catch him in her brutal grip, but his body, for all that, remained unscathed. The mesh of the chainmail saved him on the outside. Her savage talons failed to rip the web of his war shirt. Then, once she touched bottom, that wolfish swimmer carried the ring-mailed prince to her court, so that for all his courage, he could never use the weapons he carried, and a bewildering horde came at him from the depths, droves of sea beast, who attacked with tusks and tore at his chainmail in a ghastly onslaught. The gallant man could see he had entered some hellish turnhole, and yet the water did not work against him, because the hall roofing held off the force of the current. Then he saw firelight, a gleam and a flare-up, a glimmer of brightness. The hero observed that swamp-thing from hell, the Tarn-hag in all her terrible strength, then heaved his war-sword and swung his arm. The decorated blade came down ringing and singing on her head, but he soon found his battle-torch extinguished. The shining blade refused to bite. It spared her and failed the man in his need. It had gone through many hand-to-hand fights, had hewed the armor and helmets of the doomed. But here at last, the fabulous powers of that heirloom failed. Hygelac's kinsman kept thinking about his name and fame. He never lost heart. Then, in a fury, he flung his sword away. The keen, inlaid, worm-loop-patterned steel was hurled to the ground. He would have to rely on the might of his arm. So must a man do who intends to gain enduring glory in combat. Life doesn't cost him a thought. Then the Prince of Wargeats, warming to his fight with Grendel's mother, gripped her shoulder and laid about him in a battle frenzy. He pitched his killer opponent to the floor, but she rose quickly and retaliated, grappled him tightly in her grim embrace. The sure-footed fighter felt daunted. The strongest of warriors stumbled and fell. So she pounced upon him and pulled out a broad, whetted knife. Now she would avenge her only child. But the mesh of chainmail on Beowulf's shoulder shielded his life, turned the edge and tip of the blade. The son of Ecgtheow would have surely perished, and the Geats lost their warrior under the wide earth Had the strong links and locks of his war gear not helped to save him? Holy God decided the victory. It was easy for the Lord, the ruler of heaven, to redress the balance once Beowulf got back up on his feet. Then he saw a blade that boded well, a sword in her armory, an ancient heirloom from the days of the giants, an ideal weapon, one that any warrior would envy, but so huge and heavy itself, only Beowulf could wield it in battle. So the shielding's hero, hard-pressed and enraged, took a firm hold of the hilt and swung the blade in an arc, a resolute blow that bit deep into her neckbone and severed it entirely, toppling the doomed house of her flesh as she fell to the floor. The sword dripped blood. The swordsman was elated. A light appeared and the place brightened the way the sky does when heaven's candle is shining clearly. He inspected the vault with sword held high, its hilt raised to guard and threaten. Hygelac's thanes scouted by the wall in Grendel's wake. Now the weapon was to prove its worth, the warrior determined to take revenge for every gross act Grendel had committed, and not only for that one occasion when he'd come to slaughter the sleeping troops, 15 of Hrothgar's houseguards, surprised on their benches and ruthlessly devoured, and as many again carried away, a brutal plunder. Beowulf, in his fury, now settled that score. He saw the monster in his resting place, war-weary and wrecked, a lifeless corpse, a casualty of the battle in Hyrot. The body gaped at the stroke dealt to it after death. Beowulf cut the corpse's head off. Immediately, the counselors, keeping a lookout with Hrothgar, watching the lake water, saw a heave-up and surge of waves and blood in the backwash. They bowed gray heads, spoke in their sage, experienced way about the good warrior, how they never again expected to see that prince returning in triumph to their king. It was clear to many that the wolf of the deep had destroyed him forever. The 9th hour of the day arrived. The brave shieldings abandoned the cliff-top, and the king went home, but sick at heart, staring at the mirror. The strangers held on. They wished, without hope, to behold their lord, Beowulf himself. Meanwhile, the sword began to wilt into gory icicles, to slather and thaw. It was a wonderful thing, the way it all melted as ice melts when the Father eases the fetters of the frost and unravels the water ropes. He who wields power over time and tide, he is the true Lord. The Geat captains saw treasure in abundance, but carried no spoils from those quarters, except for the head and the inlaid hilt embossed with jewels. Its blade had melted, and the scrollwork on it burnt. So scalding was the blood of the poisonous fiend who had perished there. Then away he swam, the one who had survived the fall of his enemies, flailing to the surface. The wide water, the waves and pools were no longer infested. Once the wandering fiend let go of her life and this unreliable world. The seafarer's leader made for land, resolutely swimming, delighted with his prize, the mighty load he was lugging to the surface. His thanes advanced in a troop to meet him, thanking God and taking great delight in seeing their prince back safe and sound. Quickly the hero's helmet and mail shirt were loosed and unlaced. The lake settled, clouds darkened above the bloodshot depths. With high hearts they headed away, along footpaths and trails, through the fields, roads that they knew, each of them wrestling with the head were they carrying from the lakeside cliff. Men kingly in their courage and capable of difficult work. It was a task for 4 to hoist Grendel's head on a spear and bear it under strain to the bright hall, but soon enough they neared the place, 14 Geats in fine fettle, striding across the outlying ground in a delighted throng around their leader. In he came then, the Thane's commander, the arch-warrior, to address Hrothgar. His courage was proven, his glory was secure. Grendel's head was hauled by the hair, dragged across the floor where the people were drinking, a horror for both queen and company to behold. They stared in awe. It was an astonishing sight. Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow, spoke. So, son of Halfdane, prince of the Shieldings, we are glad to bring this booty from the lake. It is a token of triumph, and we tender it to you. I barely survived the battle under water. It was hard fought, a desperate affair that could have gone badly if God had not helped me. The outcome would have been quick and fatal. Although Hrunting is hard-edged, I could never bring it to bear in battle, but the Lord of Men allowed me to behold, for he often helps the unbefriended, an ancient sword shining on the wall, a weapon made for giants, there for the wielding. Then my moment came in the combat, and I struck the dwellers in that den. Next thing, the Damascene sword blade melted. It bloated and it burned in the rushing blood. I have wrested the hilt from the enemy's hand, avenged the evil done to the Danes. It is what was due. And this I pledge, O Prince of the Shieldings. You can sleep secure with your company of troops in Heorot Hall. Never need you fear for a single thane of your sept or nation, young warriors or old, that laying waste of life that you and your people endured of yore. Then the gold hilt was handed over to the old lord, a relic from long ago for the venerable ruler. That rare smithwork was passed on to the prince of the Danes. When those devils perished, once death removed that murdering, guilt-steeped, God-cursed fiend, eliminating his unholy life, and his mother's as well, it was willed to that king, who of all the lavish gift lords of the north was the best regarded between the two seas. Hrothgar spoke. He examined the hilt, that relic of old times. It was engraved all over and showed how war first came into the world, and the flood destroyed the tribe of giants. They suffered a terrible severance from the Lord. The Almighty made the waters rise, drowned them in the deluge for retribution. In pure gold inlay on the sword guards, there were rune markings correctly in size, stating and recording for whom the sword had been first made and ornamented with its scroll-worked hilt. Then everyone hushed as the son of Halfdane spoke this wisdom. A protector of his people, pledged to uphold truth and justice and to respect tradition, is entitled to affirm that this man was born to distinction. Beowulf, my friend, your fame has gone far and wide. You are known everywhere. In all things you are even-tempered, prudent, and resolute. So I stand firm by the promise of friendship we exchanged before. Forever you will be your people's mainstay and your own warrior's helping hand. Heremod was different. The way he behaved to Egwala's sons, his rise in the world brought little joy to the Danish people, only death and destruction. He vented his rage on men he caroused with, killed his own comrades, a pariah king who cut himself off from his own kind, even though Almighty God had made him eminent and powerful, and marked him from the start for a happy life. But a change happened. He grew bloodthirsty, gave no more rings to honor the Danes. He suffered in the end for having plagued his people for so long. His life lost happiness. So learn from this and understand true values. I, who tell you, have wintered into wisdom. It is a great wonder how Almighty God in His magnificence favors our race with rank and scope and the gift of wisdom. His sway is wide. Sometimes He allows the mind of a man of distinguished birth to follow its bent, grants him fulfillment and felicity on earth and forts to command in his own country. He permits him to lord it in many lands until the man, in his unthinkingness, forgets that it will ever end for him. He indulges his desires. Illness and old age mean nothing to him. His mind is untroubled by envy or malice or the thought of enemies with their hate-honed swords. The whole world conforms to his will. He is kept from the worst until an element of overweening enters him and takes hold while the soul's guard, its sentry, drowses. Grown too distracted, a killer stalks him, an archer who draws a deadly bow, and then the man is hit in the heart. The arrow flies beneath its defenses. The devious promptings of the demon start. His old possessions seem paltry to him now. He covets and resents, dishonors custom, and bestows no gold. And because of good things that the heavenly powers gave him in the past, he ignores the shape of things to come. Then finally the end arrives, when the body he was lent collapses and falls, prey to its death. Ancestral possessions and the goods he hoarded are inherited by another, who lets them go with a liberal hand. O flower of warriors, beware of that trap. Choose, dear Beowulf, the better part, eternal rewards. Do not give way to pride. For a brief while your strength is in bloom, but it fades quickly, and soon there will follow illness or the sword to lay you low, or a sudden fire or surge of water, or jabbing blade or javelin from the air, or repellent age. Your piercing eye will dim and darken, and death will arrive, dear warrior, to sweep you away. Just so I ruled the Ring-Danes' country for 50 years, defended them in wartime with spear and sword against constant assaults by many tribes. I came to believe my enemies had faded from the face of the earth. Still, what happened was a hard reversal from bliss to grief. Grendel struck after lying in wait. He laid waste to the land, and from that moment my mind was in dread of his depredations. So I praise God in his heavenly glory that I lived to behold this head dripping blood, and that after such harrowing, I look upon it in triumph at last. Take your place then with pride and pleasure, and move to the feast. Tomorrow morning our treasure will be shared and showered upon you. The Geat was elated and gladly obeyed the old man's bidding. He sat on the bench, and soon all was restored, the same as before. Happiness came back, the hall was thronged, and a banquet set forth. Black night fell and covered them in darkness. Then the company rose. For the old campaigner, the gray-haired prince was ready for bed, and a need for rest came over the brave shield-bearing Geat. He was weary seafarer, far from home, so immediately a house guard guided him out, one whose office entailed looking after whatever a thane on the road in those days might need or require. It was noble courtesy. That great heart rested, the hall towered, gold-shingled and gabled, and the guests slept in it until the black raven, with raucous glee, announced heaven's joy, and a hurry of brightness overran the shadows. Warriors rose quickly, impatient to be off. Their own country was beckoning the nobles, and the bold voyager longed to be aboard his distant boat. Then that stalwart fighter ordered Hrunting to be brought to Unferth, and bade Unferth take the sword and thanked him for lending it. He said he had found it a friend in battle, and a powerful help. He put no blame on the blade's cutting edge. He was a considerate man. And there the warriors stood in their war gear, eager to go, while their honored lord approached the platform where the others sat. The undaunted hero addressed Hrothgar. Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow, spoke. Now, we who cross the wide sea have to inform you that we feel a desire to return to Hygelac. Here we have been welcomed and thoroughly entertained. You have treated us well. If there is any favor on earth I can perform beyond the deeds of arms I have done already, anything that would merit your affections more, I shall act, my lord, with alacrity. If ever I hear from across the ocean that people on your borders are threatening battle, as attackers have done from time to time, I shall land with 1,000 thanes at my back to help your cause. Hygelac may be young to rule a nation, but this much I know about the king of the Geats. He will come to my aid and want to support me by word and action in your hour of need, when honor dictates that I raise a hedge of spears around you. Then, if Hrethric should think about traveling as a king's son to the court of the Geats, he will find many friends. Foreign places yield more to one who is himself worth meeting. Hrothgar spoke and answered him. The Lord in his wisdom sent you those words, and they came from the heart. I have never heard so young a man make truer observations. You are strong in body and mature in mind, impressive in speech. If it should come to pass that Hrethel's descendant dies beneath a spear, if deadly battle or the sword blade or disease fells the prince who guards your people, and you are still alive, then I firmly believe the seafaring Geats won't find a man worthier of acclaim as their king and defender than you, if only you would undertake the lordship of your homeland. My liking for you deepens with time, dear Beowulf. What you have done is to draw two peoples, the Geat nation and us neighboring Danes, into shared peace and a pact of friendship, in spite of hatreds we have harbored in the past. For as long as I rule this far-flung land, treasures will change hands, and each side will treat the other with gifts. Across the gannet's bath, over the broad sea, world prows will bring presents and tokens. I know your people are beyond reproach in every respect, steadfast in the old way with friend or foe. Then the Earl's defender furnished the hero with 12 treasures and told him to set out, sail with those gifts safely home to the people he loved, but to return promptly. And so the good and gray-haired Dane, that high-born king, kissed Beowulf and embraced his neck, then broke down in sudden tears. Two forebodings disturbed him in his wisdom, but one was stronger. Never more would they meet each other face to face, and such was his affection that he could not help being overcome. His fondness for the man was so deep-founded, it warmed his heart and wound the heartstrings tight in his breast. The embrace ended, and Beowulf, glorious in his gold regalia, stepped the green earth, straining at anchor and ready for boarding. His boat awaited him. So they went on their journey, and Hrothgar's generosity was praised repeatedly. He was a peerless king until old age sapped his strength and did him mortal harm, as it had done so many. Down to the waves then, dressed in the web of their chainmail and war shirts, the young men marched in high spirits. The coast guard spied them, Danes setting forth, the same as before. His salute this time from the top of the cliff was far from unmannerly. He galloped to meet them, and as they took ship in their shining gear, he said how welcome they would be in Geatland. Then the broad hull was beached on the sand to be cargoed with treasure, horses, and war gear. The curved prow motioned, the mast stood high, above Hrothgar's riches in the loaded hold. The guard who had watched the boat was given a sword with gold fittings, and in future days that present would make him a respected man at his place on the mead bench. Then the keel plunged and shook in the sea, and they sailed from Denmark. Right away the mast was rigged with its sea shawl, sail ropes were tightened, timbers drummed, and stiff winds kept the wave crosser skimming ahead. As she heaved forward, her foamy neck was fleet and buoyant, a lapped prow loping over currents, until finally the Geats caught sight of coastline and familiar cliffs. The keel reared up, wind lifted it home, it hit on the land. The harbor guard came hurrying out to the rolling water. He had watched the offing long and hard, on the lookout for those friends. With the anchor cables, he moored their craft, right where it had beached, in case a backwash might catch the hull and carry it away. Then he ordered the prince's treasure trove to be carried ashore. It was a short step from there to where Hrethel's son and heir, Hygelac, the gold giver, makes his home on a secure cliff, in the company of retainers. The building was magnificent, the king majestic, ensconced in his hall, and although Hygd, his queen, was young, a few short years at court, her mind was thoughtful and her manners sure. Hareth's daughter behaved generously, and stinted nothing when she distributed bounty to the Geats. Great Queen Modthrith perpetrated terrible wrongs. If any retainer ever made bold to look her in the face, if an eye, not her lord's, stared at her directly during daylight, the outcome was sealed. He was kept bound in hand-tightened shackles, racked, tortured until doom was pronounced, death by the sword, slash of blade, blood gush, and death qualms in an evil display. Even a queen outstanding in beauty must not overstep like that. A queen should weave peace, not punish the innocent with loss of life for imagined insults. But Hemming's kinsman put a halt to her ways, and drinkers around the table had another tale. She was less of a bane to people's lives, less cruel-minded, after she was married to the brave Offa, a bride arrayed in her gold finery, given away by a caring father, ferried to her young prince over dim seas. In days to come she would grace the throne and grow famous for her good deeds and conduct of life. Her high devotion to the hero king, who was the best king, it has been said, between the two seas or anywhere else on the face of the earth. Offa was honored far and wide for generous ways, his fighting spirit and his far-seeing defense of his homestead. From him there sprang Eomer, Garaman's grandson, kinsman of Hemming, his warrior's mainstay and master of the field. Heroic Beowulf and his band of men crossed the wide strand, striding along the sandy foreshore. The sun shone, the world's candle warmed them from the south, as they hastened to where, as they had heard, the young king, Ongentiau's killer, and his people's protector, was dispensing rings inside his bawn. Beowulf's return was reported to Hygelac as soon as possible. News that the captain was now in the enclosure, his battle brother back from the fray, alive and well, walking to the hall. Room was quickly made on the king's orders, and the troops filed across the cleared floor. After Hygelac had offered greetings to his loyal thane in lofty speech, he and his kinsman, the hale survivor, sat face to face. Hareth's daughter moved out with the mead jug in her hand, taking care of the company, filling the cups that the warriors held out. Then Hygelac began to put courteous questions to his old comrade in the high hall. He hankered to know every tale the sea-geats had to tell. "How did you fare on your foreign voyage, dear Beowulf, when you abruptly decided to sail away across the salt water and fight at Heorot? Did you help Hrothgar much in the end? Could you ease the prince of his well-known troubles? Your undertaking cast my spirits down. I dreaded the outcome of your expedition and pleaded with you, long and hard, to leave the killer be. Let the South Danes settle their own blood feud with Grendel. So God be thanked, I am granted this sight of you, safe and sound." Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow, spoke. "What happened, Lord Hygelac, is hardly a secret. Any more among men in this world, myself and Grendel coming to grips on the very spot where he visited destruction, on the Victory shieldings and violated life and limb. Loss is I avenged, so no earthly offspring of Grendel's need ever boast of that bout before dawn, no matter how long the last of his evil family survives. When I first landed, I hastened to the ring hall and saluted Hrothgar. Once he discovered why I had come, the son of Halfdane sent me immediately to sit with his own sons on the bench. It was a happy gathering. In my whole life I have never seen mead enjoyed more in any hall on earth. Sometimes the queen herself appeared, peace pledge between nations, to hearten the young ones and hand out a torque to a warrior, then take her place. Sometimes Hrothgar's daughter distributed ale to the older ranks, in order, on the benches. I heard the company call her Freywaru as she made her rounds, presenting men with gem-studded bowl, young bride-to-be, to the gracious Ingeld in her gold-trimmed attire. The friend of the shieldings favors her betrothal, the guardian of the kingdom sees good in it, and hopes this woman will heal old wounds and grievous feuds. But generally, the spear is prompt to retaliate when a prince is killed, no matter how admirable the bride may be. Think how the Heathobards will be bound to feel, their lord, Ingeld, and his loyal thanes, when he walks in with that woman to the feast. Danes are at the table, being entertained, honored guests in glittering regalia, burnished ringmail that was their host's birthright, looted when the Heathobards could no longer wield their weapons in the shield clash, when they went down with their beloved comrades and forfeited their lives. Then an old spearman will speak while they are drinking, having glimpsed some heirloom that brings alive memories of the massacre. His mood will darken, and heart-stricken, in the stress of his emotion, he will begin to test a young man's temper and stir up trouble, starting like this. "Now, my friend, don't you recognize your father's sword, his favorite weapon, the one he wore when he went out in his war mask to face the Danes on that final day? After Weathergeld died and his men were doomed, the shieldings quickly claimed the field, and now here's a son of one or other of those same killers, coming through our hall, overbearing us, mouthing boasts, and rigged in armor that by right is yours." And so he keeps on, recalling and accusing, working things up with bitter words, until one of the lady's retainers lies spattered in blood, split open on his father's account. The killer knows the lie of the land and escapes with his life. Then, on both sides, the oath-bound lords will break the peace, A passionate hate will build up in Ingeld, and love for his bride will falter in him as the feud rankles. I therefore suspect the good faith of the Heathebards, the true of their friendship, and the trustworthiness of their alliance with the Danes. But now, my lord, I shall carry on with my account of Grendel, the whole story of everything that happened in the hand-to-hand fight. After Heaven's gem had gone mildly to earth, that maddened spirit, the terror of those twilights, came to attack us where we stood guard, still safe inside the hall. There deadly violence came down on Hancio, and he fell as fate ordained, the first to perish rigged out for combat. A comrade from our ranks had come to grief in Grendel's maw. He ate up the entire body. There was blood on his teeth. He was bloated and furious, all roused up, yet still unready to leave the hall empty-handed. Renowned for his might, he matched himself against me, wildly reaching. He had this roomy pouch, a strange accoutrement, intricately strung and hung at the ready, a rare patchwork of devilishly fitted dragon skins. I had done him no wrong, yet the raging demon wanted to cram me and many other into his bag. But it was not to be. Once I got my feet in a blind fury. It would take too long to tell how I repaid the terror of the land for every life he took, and so won credit for you, my king, and for all your people. And although he got away to enjoy life's sweetness for a while longer, his right hand stayed behind him in Hygelac, evidence of his miserable overthrow as he dived into murk on the mere bottom. I got lavish rewards from the lord of the Danes for my part in the battle, beaten gold and much else. Once morning came and we took our places at the banquet table. There was singing and excitement. An old reciter, a carrier of stories, recalled the early days. At times some hero made the timbered harp tremble with sweetness, or related true and tragic happenings. At times the king gave the proper turn to some fantastic tale, or a battle-scarred veteran, bowed with age, would begin to remember the martial deeds of his youth and prime, and be overcome as the past welled up in his wintry heart. We were happy there the whole day long, and enjoyed our time until another night descended upon us. Then suddenly the vehement mother avenged her son and wreaked destruction. Death had robbed her. Geats had slain Grendel, so his ghastly dam struck back, and with bare-faced defiance laid a man low. Thus life departed from the sage Aschir, an elder wise in counsel. But afterwards, on the morning following, the Danes could not burn the dead body, nor lay the remains of the man they loved on his funeral pyre. She had fled with the corpse, and taken refuge beneath the torrents on the mountain. It was a hard blow for Hrothgar to bear, harder than any he had undergone before, and so the heartsore king beseeched me, in your royal name, to take my chances under water, to win glory and prove my worth. He promised me rewards. Hence, as is well known, I went to my encounter with the terror-monger at the bottom of the tarn. For a while it was hand-to-hand between us. Then blood went curling along the currents, and I beheaded Grendel's mother in the hall with a mighty sword. I barely managed to escape with my life. My time has not yet come, but Halfdane's heir, the shelter of those earls, again endowed me with gifts in abundance. Thus the king acted with due custom. I was paid and recompensed completely, given full measure and the freedom to choose from Hrothgar's treasure by Hrothgar himself. These, King Hygelac, I am happy to present to you as gifts. It is still upon your grace that all favor depends. I have few kinsmen who are close, my king, except for your kind self. Then he ordered the boar-framed standard to be brought, the battle-topping helmet, the mail shirt, gray as hoarfrost, and the precious war sword, and proceeded with his speech. When Hrothgar presented this war gear to me, he instructed me, my lord, to give you some account of why it signifies his special favor. He said it had belonged to his older brother, King Hrothgar, who had long kept it, but that Hrothgar had never bequeathed it to his son, Heroweird, that worthy scion, speech loyal as he was. Enjoy it well. I heard 4 horses were handed over next. Beowulf bestowed 4 bay steeds to go with the armor, swift gallopers, all alike. So ought a kinsman act, instead of plotting and planning in secret to bring people to grief, or conspiring to arrange the death of comrades. The warrior king was uncle to Beowulf, and honored by his nephew. Each was concerned for the other's good. I heard he presented Hygelac with a gorget, the priceless torque that the prince's daughter Wealhtheow had given him, and 3 horses, supple creatures, brilliantly saddled. The bright necklace would be luminous on Hygelac's breast. Thus Beowulf bore himself with valor. He was formidable in battle, yet behaved with honor, and took no advantage. Never cut down a comrade who was drunk, kept his temper, and, warrior that he was, watched and controlled his God-sent strength and his outstanding natural powers. He had been poorly regarded for a long time, was taken by the Geats for less than he was worth, and their lord, too, had never much esteemed him in the mead hall. They firmly believed that he lacked force, that the prince was a weakling, but presently every affront to his deserving was reversed. The battle-famed king, bulwark of his earls, ordered a gold-chased heirloom of Hrethels to be brought in. It was the best example of gem-studded sword in the Geat treasury. This he laid on Beowulf's lap, and then rewarded him with land as well, 7,000 hides, and a hall and a throne. Both owned land by birth in that country, ancestral grounds, but the greater right and sway were inherited by the higher born.